Welcome. Tomodachi Life Living the Dream was announced, and people are hyped. And honestly, it's hard not to be. Fans have been begging for a sequel, but the closest thing we got was Miitomo in 2016, which Nintendo sent to the Shadow Realm 2 years later. And now it finally happened. There are very few other games where you could put a bunch of characters onto a deserted island and watch them suffer. Like, can you imagine dropping Spider-Man onto Island Life? Where's he gonna swing from? The world's shortest skyscraper? I don't think so. Or worse, a Disney princess. Could you imagine a Disney princess stuck in some musty one-room condo? Elsa's ice powers were not built for this humidity. And the best part? Anyone can fall in love. Anyone. Well, not anyone. But you can see the most unexpected couples. Like, take the earlier example of Elsa and Spider-Man. You know what? Nope, forget I said it. Shut it down, delete the video, set the desktop on fire. It's not happening. Not again. Not in this economy. Tomodachi Life lovingly destroyed our lives starting 2013, and somehow Nintendo just gave it a global release a bit over a year later. Which is wild considering these games have full voice synthesization. That's something that's way easier to do in Japanese, since Japanese has consistent sounds for each character. But other languages, not so much. Why do I hear boss music? The game's premise and systems were rather basic, yet it worked. You made Miis, watched them interact, fed them, played minigames, and occasionally met your sleep paralysis demon. But what really made this game special was the ability to create pure, unadulterated chaos. Would you marry your anime crush? Watch your OTP get divorced within 20 minutes? Or would you watch your lookalike live the life you dreamed of? Rent-free on a beautiful tropical island, finding love and happiness and financial security, while you, the real you, stare at a small 3DS screen at 3 a.m. in a torn Simple Plan tee because you forgot to put in your laundry like a well-adjusted adult, slowly realizing that you shall never become your creation and must spend eternity bowing to their every whim until the heat death of the universe. Anyway, when I played Tomodachi Life for the first time, I remember my lookalike did not like coffee. And being the mature and understanding person that I am, I did the most reasonable thing that I could think of. Soft resetting to force her to like it. 13 times. In a row. It didn't work. It struck me as odd. How did the game remember that she didn't like coffee if she had never tried it? Does it save every single individual food preference for every single me on the island? Was it a fluke? Was I cursed? I had to find out. First off, is there even a question here to begin with? Does that question count? How about that one? How about that one?
How about Hunter? How about Ryder? How about Lucas? How about...
You see, it is possible that food preferences in Tomodachi Life are random based on external factors, like the first time you feed it to a me, the order you created them, the date, the time, which planet is in retrograde, if you blinked an even number of times on the start screen. Now it's time to make my totally voluntary test subjects. Legally speaking, I cannot confirm nor deny the possibility of bribery. I fed each one banana and one sandwich and documented the results. Without saving, I rebooted the game and did the same thing all over again. The results surprisingly stayed the same. I continued this over and over, and sure enough, the results were consistent. Great! Shrek loved bananas. It's a multi-layered fruit after all. Burrito loved the sandwich, which is no surprise considering burritos are a kind of sandwich. Is that a hot take? Leave your problematic sandwich definitions in the comments below. Then suddenly, the worst imaginable thing happened. Why does he hate bananas now? This wasn't in the experiment's terms and conditions, Shrek. Oh, never mind, he loves them again. Just kidding. Next restart, he hated them again. What happened? Did he develop an allergy like me? Were there too few layers? Does he only like the green ones? Ugh. So there you have it. After countless hours of finger-breaking resets, navigating to sandwich over and over again, it was all for nothing. It didn't matter. It was all just random. Because in the end, Tomodachi Life giveth, and Tomodachi Life taketh away. No, I can't give up. It can't end like this.
Hi friends, Editing Chiffon here. It turns out that sometimes when your me is hungry, they'll request that you feed them. And if you feed them food that aligns with what they're asking for, they will always love that food. So it wasn't a glitch in the Matrix. Shrek really does hate bananas. He was just hungry. So yeah, very cool. Thanks, Nintendo.
After that, he just casually decided, nah, I hate them actually, and didn't swap back in any of the tests that I did. But at least he and I can agree on one thing. Coffee is love. Coffee is life. After putting my Mies on the Banana Witch diet, I realized that I wasn't really getting a clear picture. So I figured it was time to mix it up, broaden their culinary palette with a couple more items. With say, more or less, literally every food in the game. This was very easy and a totally great idea. But I must say, the distribution was fascinating. Bad foods like space foods, moldy breads, and banana peels were universally hated. No surprise there. But in the case of this me, she disproportionately loved desserts. Whereas my lookalike hated most desserts. Not just that, but bubble tea. Bubble tea! She's a freaking imposter. I'm filing a cease and desist for using my likeness. This changed my entire understanding of the system. We do know from character requests that foods do have different categories like origin, flavor, and type, so this wasn't a huge surprise, but a rather pleasant one that they went that far. Now, it's very hard to tell what's going on behind the scenes from just data alone, so take my analysis with a grain of salt. It seems that each food is given a tag, as well as a base score of likability. Foods like licorice, which are known in our real world for being an acquired taste, was very unpopular with all but one of my Mies. Whereas foods that are more popular in our real world were liked even in spite of their apparent preferences. So now that we know about all these preferences, how on earth does it store all that data? Well, poking around on different forums, I didn't find much about the source code of Tomodachi Life, but I did find out that the most accessible values are the top 3 foods and the super liked and disliked foods. Now, the game could save a list of every single character preference for every single me, but that wouldn't be very efficient. There are hundreds of ways to solve the same problem in coding, but being me, I had the one solution in mind: seed randomness. In programming, randomness is never truly random. We can influence a bunch of results a bunch of different ways, and one of which is to use a seed. Think about a seed like a literal packet of plant seeds, and the random generator almost like a flower bed. If you don't touch the flower bed, completely random things will grow every single time based on the environmental factors. But if you use the packet of seeds, you will see the same plant grow no matter what. You can't change what those seeds will turn into, but you can change the packet that you use. If you input a seed when generating numbers, you'll get a string of numbers that are the exact same anytime you put in that exact seed.
So when you need dynamic randomness, like which foods a me likes, you can just save the seed value instead of having to save every single random value that is produced. Following along? Great! Now take everything I said and throw it all away, because shortly after editing this video, I was able to find out more about the source code. And oh boy. Now, my original consideration was that a seed value could be saved to regenerate the food preference list without having to store all sorts of data. But looking closer, it just doesn't add up. Seeds are usually used for things like loading procedurally generated worlds or generating Pokemon encounters, not really saving data like this. Sure, it could be used this way, but it doesn't mean it should. Retrieving these values would be more expensive on the system to load, especially if a lot of Mies are present. Not to mention, there was no easily readable data that would suggest that a seed was saved. In fact, it didn't really seem like a list was being loaded at all. So if it's not food preferences or lists or seeds that are being saved and loaded to the game, is there another option entirely? I had started this video in April of 2025, and just as I was finishing it up in September of 2025, I came across a very, very interesting community. Tomodachi Enterprises is a Tomodachi Life modding group that's trying to better understand the data to expand modding opportunities. I can't go too in depth about it as YouTube and Nintendo might smite me, but the people on there are incredibly brilliant, and I take absolutely no credit for finding any of this data out myself. There is a little bit of publicly posted information about Tomodachi Life's save data structure for food items. It just blows my mind how much data is attached to a single item in this game. A few things did catch my eye though, specifically the food attributes and the taste values. Each food is given an attribute flag, either true or false. From what I've seen from the community search, the attributes are sweet, salty, sour, spicy, hot, cold, awful, confectionery, eggs, meat, fish, oily, fruit, vegetable, bread, rice, Japanese, Chinese, Asian, Western, American, British, French, German, Spanish, Korean, noodle, luxury, and junk. You know, the basic food groups. The food preferences aren't being stored by a huge list of items, but it might be taking into account specific likes and dislikes of each of those food categories, and maybe some sort of controlled randomness. So, in theory, when a me is fed an item, instead of them having to find it in a list and rank it based on that, we can learn its ranking based on the score of the food based on their base preferences and whatever else is behind the scenes. It's more algorithmic rather than something that is saved and loaded. This made a lot of sense because if a me disliked sweet items, they wouldn't dislike all sweet items across the board because there would be some other attributes that they may enjoy. The one thing that does intrigue me is that there is a value called food taste, and there are 4 values labeled A, B, C, and D, and they could be anything from a flavor profile value to something entirely different. It could determine the color of the sky for all I know. My initial theory is that it might contribute to some controlled randomness so that some of the items are more liked than others, or this could be why certain foods are widely disliked, even if they do align with preferences that the me has. So there you have it. A messy hypothesis as to why my lookalike hates bubble tea despite the fact that I named my channel after it. All based on scattered information from a game that's over a decade old. So I can finally rest, knowing that Shrek will always hate bananas. Until one day, someday soon, he somehow decides that he loves them again.